Hi, greetings,
Morning.
Tim.
Hi, good morning, Senator. This is Tim Steele. How are you?
Good to talk with you.
Nice to talk with you. All right, so let's start with some easy questions here. I know you're on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, so let's talk first about what's going on in Turkey with the Kurds and your view of the Trump administration's moves.
Well, the Trump administration, by rapidly redeploying American troops and abandoning the Kurds, our allies, has created a vacuum of power that is great for our enemies. It's great for Iran and for Syria and for Russia and for ISIS. But it's terrible for our allies, the Kurds, and this deeply disturbs me.
So, what do you think we should be doing? Is there any way to adjust what's been going on in the last 10 days there, or anything?
Now, I was thinking about how in 1972 we asked the Kurds to revolt against Saddam Hussein. We supported them for 3 years, and then we cut a deal with Iran, which had asked us to help the Kurds revolt against Saddam in Iraq. And we immediately pulled the rug out from under the Kurds then, left them extremely vulnerable to retaliation by Saddam Hussein. Kissinger, who was the architect of this, said that covert action is not to be confused with missionary work. In other words, he had no regrets about abandoning a key ally who had sacrificed their lives in the fight against Saddam Hussein. And apparently Donald Trump doesn't understand the importance of allies in this case either. Putting this back together is extremely difficult. The vacuum has been immediately seized upon by Syria, by Turkey, by Russia. ISIS fighters are at risk that imprisoned ISIS fighters could end up being released and recreate some havoc in the region. So it is a losing strategy on every level.
Boy, there's a lot to unpack there. What do our allies say? Have they weighed in on what they think the administration has said or done in this area?
I have not heard how the European allies are weighing in, but it reinforces a series of cases in which we've built structures and partnerships that have been abandoned under this administration. That includes abandoning the JCPOA to curtail the Iranian nuclear program after we had worked with the world to put that in place. It includes abandoning the Paris Agreement, in which we worked with the world to create a structure to curb carbon pollution, which is having devastating consequences around the globe, and certainly in Oregon as well. And so this adds to it that America cannot be trusted as a partner and as an ally. That undermines our power in all kinds of ways.
Let's move on to a topic that was on a lot of Americans' minds, and certainly front and center in the Democratic debate last night was the impeachment of President Trump. Just for the record, where do you stand on the impeachment of the president?
I think the impeachment inquiry should have been convened some time ago. I used to say that let's wait and see what the Mueller report said. But the Mueller report presented 4 cases of obstruction of justice in which 1,000 former federal prosecutors said anyone else who did those things would be indicted. I powerfully believe in the vision of equal justice under law. That means if an ordinary American would be indicted for a crime or for an action, the president should be indicted as well. And in this case, that means that the House should have acted.
Do you think the House will impeach, and if so, what's the prospects in the Senate?
Well, if we go back to Watergate, the prospects in the Senate changed during the hearings in the House because more and more information became available about the conspiracy that President Nixon had conducted. And so I don't think we can presume to know how the Senate will end up without knowing how the investigation in the House will end up. Hopefully, each senator will treat this as a situation in which they'll ask themselves, what would I do if a president of the other party was the person on which this evidence bears? In other words, it needs to be country before party.
All right, Senator, I believe we're out of time, but I appreciate you giving us a few minutes of your time. Best of luck to you, and we'll talk again soon.
You're welcome, Tim. Thank you.
Bye-bye.